In this video, I'm about to show you how the mayor of Chicago is absolutely stunned after a major retail chain cuts hundreds of jobs and blames the city's decline. You see these headlines every week now. Another company packs up, another batch of layoffs, another politician standing at a podium looking confused, like they have no idea how this happened. But you and I know exactly how it happened. Bad decisions, higher taxes, empty streets. And now, the very people who run this city are acting surprised when businesses finally say, we've had enough. Let me break down what's really going on, which brands are leaving, which ones are staying, and why your wallet is getting crushed in the middle of all this. Let me set the scene for you. It was a Tuesday morning last month. The mayor is at a podium in City Hall. He's got that look on his face, the one where he's trying to look strong, but you can see the panic underneath. He's just been told that Walgreens, a company born and raised right here in Chicago, is cutting 250 jobs at their headquarters in Deerfield, not some faraway city, Deerfield, Illinois, 30 minutes from downtown. And here's the kicker. Walgreens didn't just say it was a cost-cutting measure. They specifically blamed the crime and the business climate in Chicago. The mayor said, and I'm quoting from the Chicago Tribune article from last month, Walgreens is making a corporate decision that has nothing to do with the city's fundamentals. Nothing to do with the fundamentals. That's what he said. Meanwhile, the CEO of Walgreens, Tim Wentworth, had just told investors that they were closing 150 stores nationwide, and a disproportionate number were in the Chicago area because of organized retail theft. The company reported a loss of $3 billion last fiscal year, according to their SEC filing. $3 billion. And they said directly that theft and safety concerns were a major factor. You know what the mayor didn't mention? That Walgreens had already spent over $40 million on security upgrades in Chicago stores alone. That's according to a company report from 2022. $40 million for extra guards, locked cases, and cameras, and still, they couldn't make it work. So they cut jobs. 250 families now wondering how they're going to pay the mortgage, and the mayor stands there and says it's not his fault. I've been retired for 8 years now, and I've never seen leadership this out of touch. Now, Walgreens isn't the only one. Let me tell you about Walmart. In April of last year, Walmart closed 2 stores in Chicago, one on the south side, one on the west side. These weren't small stores, they were supercenters, each employing about 250 people. That's 500 jobs gone just like that. The official statement from Walmart said, these locations have not been profitable since we opened them nearly a decade ago. But a Walmart spokesperson, a woman named Felicia McCraney, went further in an interview with the Sun-Times. She said the stores were losing tens of millions of dollars a year because of theft and because the surrounding neighborhoods had lost population. Here's the data. The U.S. Census Bureau says Chicago lost nearly 100,000 residents between 2020 and 2023. That's the biggest population drop of any major American city. When people leave, stores close. When stores close, jobs disappear. When jobs disappear, more people leave. It's a cycle that feeds itself. And the mayor's response? He called Walmart's decision corporate greed and said they were abandoning communities they had promised to serve. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing that phrase, corporate greed. Sometimes it's just math. If a store isn't making money, it closes. That's not greed. That's reality. And the reality is that Chicago made it impossible for Walmart to stay. Those 500 workers, what are they doing now? Some of them moved to the suburbs, some of them left the state entirely. A few of them, I heard, moved to Florida, where Walmart is actually expanding. They opened 20 new stores in Florida last year. 20. In Illinois, they closed 6. You don't need an economics degree to see which way the wind is blowing. Target is another one that got tired of the mess. In the fall of 2022, Target closed 2 stores in Chicago, one on Roosevelt Road, one near Loyola. They cited financial performance in the press release, but the real story came out later in an internal memo that got leaked to Crane's Chicago business. In that memo, Target executives said the stores were losing over $5 million a year combined because of theft and because the surrounding areas had become too dangerous for employees to commute to. Let me read you something from that memo. It said, shrink rates at these locations exceed company averages by over 300%. Shrink is the retail term for theft and damage. 300% above average. That means for every dollar of stuff they sold, they were losing 3 times as much to shoplifters and vandals as a normal Target. No business can survive that. Target had hired off-duty police officers to stand at the entrances. They had locked up everything from laundry detergent to toothpaste. And still, people would walk in, fill up garbage bags, and walk out. The city passed an ordinance making it a misdemeanor, but the state's attorney's office wasn't prosecuting. The mayor, when asked about the Target closings, said, "We need to look at the root causes of poverty and disinvestment." That's a direct quote from a press conference. Poverty and disinvestment. Not crime, not theft, not the fact that his own police department was short by over 1,000 officers. The Chicago Fraternal Order of Police said in 2023 that officer resignations were up 40% from the previous year. 40%. So there aren't enough cops to stop the theft, and then the mayor blames poverty. It makes me want to pull my hair out. Here's one that really shows you how bad things have gotten. Home Depot, the orange aprons, the place you go for lumber and nails. In 2019, Home Depot announced they were going to build a new store in the Pullman neighborhood on the far south side. This was a big deal. Pullman had been struggling for decades. A new Home Depot meant jobs. It meant tax revenue. It meant people had a reason to come to the area. The city approved the deal. They gave tax breaks. They promised infrastructure improvements. Then the pandemic hit. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that Home Depot looked at the crime statistics in 2021 and 2022 and got cold feet. According to the Chicago Police Department's own data, homicides in the area around the proposed site increased by 60% between 2019 and 2021. Carjackings doubled. Home Depot's CEO, Ted Decker, said in a shareholder call, "We are reevaluating all urban store openings in light of safety concerns. They never built that Pullman store. The land is still empty. A chain link fence around a patch of weeds. 300 construction jobs never happened. 150 permanent retail jobs never happened. Millions in tax revenue that would have gone to schools and roads, gone." And the mayor, he blamed supply chain issues. Supply chain issues. That's what they said at City Hall. Not the crime, not the fear. Not the fact that Home Depot had 3 other stores in the Chicago area that were bleeding money because of theft. No, it was the supply chain. I was a supply chain manager for 30 years before I retired. I know a lie when I hear one. Let me give you some numbers that will make your blood boil. According to the Illinois Retail Merchants Association, Chicago lost over 2,000 retail jobs in 2023 alone. That's not stores closing in the suburbs. That's the city itself. 2,000 families losing their paychecks. The same report says that retail vacancy rates in Chicago are now over 15%. That's 1 in every 6 storefronts sitting empty. Walk down State Street downtown, walk down 95th Street on the south side, walk down Milwaukee Avenue in Wicker Park. For every store that's open, there's a for lease sign in the window. And what do the officials say? They say it's e-commerce. They say people are shopping online. But in Florida, where the population is growing, retail vacancy is under 7%. In Texas, it's under 8%. In Chicago, it's double that. So it's not just Amazon killing retail. It's crime, it's taxes, it's bad leadership. A study by the Anderson Economic Group found that the combined tax burden on a retail store in Chicago is 30% higher than in Jacksonville, Florida. 30%. That means if you run a store in Chicago, you have to charge more or make less profit just to keep the lights on. I talked to a retired small business owner named Frank. He ran a hardware store on the northwest side for 40 years. He closed it in 2022. He told me, between the property taxes and the shoplifting, I was working for free. Frank moved to Orlando. He's not coming back. That's the story of Chicago in 2024. Frank is one of thousands. Now, it's not all bad news. There are some brands that are staying and fighting. You have to give them credit. One of them is Jewel Osco. They've been in Chicago since 1899. That's over 120 years. They have about 180 stores in the Chicago area, and they're not leaving. Why? Because they're owned by Albertsons, a massive grocery chain, and they have deep pockets. But even Jewel is struggling. In 2023, they announced they were closing 10 underperforming stores in the Chicago area. Not all of them were in the city, but enough to hurt. The ones that are staying are adapting. They're adding more self-checkout, which I hate personally because I'm old and I can't figure out the screens, but it reduces the need for cashiers. They're locking up expensive items like baby formula and laundry detergent. They've added armed security guards at some locations. The CEO of Albertsons, Vivek Sankaran, said in an interview that Chicago is still a core market for them, but he warned that they can't keep absorbing losses forever. That's code for fix your city or we're next. Another brand that's staying is Mariano's. They're owned by Kroger, the biggest grocery chain in the country. Mariano's has about 40 stores in the Chicago area. They've closed a few, like the one in Lakeview a couple years ago, but most are still open. Why do they stay? Because Kroger is playing the long game. They think the city will eventually get its act together, but even Kroger is nervous. In their 2023 annual report, they listed crime and safety concerns as a risk factor for their urban stores. That's corporate speak for, we might leave if this keeps up. So what's the mayor's brilliant plan to fix all this? I'll tell you, and try not to laugh. He wants to raise the real estate transfer tax on properties sold for over $1 million. Sounds good, right? Make the rich pay. But here's the problem. The Illinois Policy Institute analyzed this plan and found that it would actually reduce overall tax revenue because it would discourage people from selling expensive properties. Fewer sales means fewer taxes. And who does that hurt? It hurts the city's budget, which means they have to cut services or raise other taxes. The mayor also wants to create a community wealth building program. That's a fancy way of saying he wants to give taxpayer money to community groups to start co-ops and small businesses. I'm not against small businesses. I love them. But the city is broke. The city's own budget documents show a projected deficit of over $200 million for next year. $200 million. And the mayor wants to spend money on new programs instead of fixing the basics like police, garbage collection, and road repair. And of course, he's blaming everyone else. He blames the previous mayor, he blames the governor, he blames the federal government, he blames the corporations for leaving. But he never looks in the mirror. A retired school teacher named Dorothy told me, I've lived in Chicago for 60 years. I've seen mayors come and go. This one is the worst at taking responsibility. Dorothy volunteers at a food pantry on the west side. She said the number of families coming in has doubled in the last 2 years. That's the real story of this leadership crisis. Let me tell you about Publix. You probably know Publix if you've ever been to Florida. It's a grocery chain based in Lakeland, Florida. They have over 1,300 stores in the Southeast, and they're thriving. In 2023, Publix reported sales of over $50 billion. $50 billion with a B. They employ over 250,000 people, and here's the kicker. They have 0 stores in Illinois. 0. Why don't they come to Chicago? Because they looked at the numbers and said no thanks. A spokesperson for Publix told the Tampa Bay Times that they have no plans to expand into the Midwest because of market conditions. That's code for your crime and taxes are too high. Meanwhile, Publix is opening 20 to 30 new stores every year in Florida. They're building distribution centers, they're hiring, and Chicago officials are wondering why their own grocery stores are closing. I have a cousin in Naples, Florida. He's retired just like me. He told me he walks to his local Publix every morning to get his paper and a coffee. He said there's always a police officer in the parking lot, not because the crime is bad, but because the store hires one for security. They're proactive. In Chicago, the police are stretched so thin they can't respond to a burglary call until the next day. My neighbor had his garage broken into last month. He called 911 at 9 p.m. They showed up at 7 the next morning. 10 hours. That's the difference between a city that works and a city that doesn't. Now let me bring this home for you. How does all this affect you, the retired person on a fixed income? Every time a store closes, you have fewer choices. Fewer choices means less competition. Less competition means higher prices. It's basic economics. When Walmart left the South Side, the remaining grocery stores raised their prices by an average of 8%, according to a study by the University of Illinois at Chicago. 8% on your food bill. That's real money when you're living on Social Security. Same thing with Walgreens. When they close stores, you have to drive further to get your prescriptions. That costs gas money, that costs time. And if you're like me and you don't like driving at night, it means you have to plan your day around picking up your blood pressure medication. It's a hassle, it's an expense, and it's completely unnecessary. The Chicago Food Policy Action Council reported that over 200,000 Chicagoans now live in food deserts, which are areas without a grocery store within a mile. 200,000 people. That's the size of a small city. Those people are paying more for food at corner stores and gas stations. They're getting less nutritious food. They're getting sicker. And the mayor's response? He announced a food equity task force. Another task force. More meetings. More reports. No action. Here's the truth that the mayor doesn't want you to hear. The panic is just beginning. According to a survey by the Chicago Business Alliance, over 40% of retailers in the city are considering leaving within the next 2 years. 40%. That's nearly half. If that happens, you're looking at tens of thousands of lost jobs. You're looking at empty storefronts on every block. You're looking at a death spiral that will take decades to reverse. The mayor is stunned because he thought he could blame his way out of this. He thought if he just pointed fingers at corporations, at the governor, at the previous administration, people would believe him. But you're not stupid. You see what's happening. You feel it when you go to the store and the shelves are locked up. You feel it when you can't find a parking spot because half the lot is closed for security. You feel it when your property tax bill comes and it's $300 higher than last year. I'll leave you with this. A few weeks ago, I was at a Jewel Osco on the north side. I was buying a loaf of bread and a rotisserie chicken. The woman at the register, probably 70 years old, looked tired. I said, "Long day?" She said, "Every day is long now. We're short-staffed because people are afraid to work here." She told me she takes the bus from the south side every morning at 5 a.m. 2 buses, 90 minutes each way, because the store near her house closed. She said, "I don't know how much longer I can do this." That's the human cost of bad leadership. The mayor is stunned. But we shouldn't be. We saw this coming. We tried to warn them. And now we're all paying the price. Stay smart, stay frugal, and I'll see you in the next one.